Well, it's been quite the roller coaster ride over the last few weeks, right? We've gone in our house from being very excited to going to see Grandma and Grandpa and Uncle Jeff and celebrate Uncle Jeff's 50th birthday to staying at home and not being able to go. And it's been very, very difficult. And I know some of you had plans for the March break as well and just couldn't do them. It's been pretty stressful all around. And we don't know how long the social isolation will last. Those of us with kids are right now maybe trying to balance our work with keeping the kids learning and healthy and happy. And there's just a lot of extra in our lives. It feels like a huge juggling act filled with a lot of uncertainty.
My beautiful fish, the news says one thing and the internet says another thing. How long do you think this isolation is going to last?
But we're the lucky ones because we're okay health-wise. My heart goes out to all those who are ill with COVID-19. I remember quite a few years ago talking with someone in North Gower who said they remembered when another pandemic went through. I think it must have been the Spanish flu in 1918. And they saw people through the people's windows. They were crawling around trying to just get around and get food, but they couldn't walk. And the helplessness, the sense of helplessness of not being able to go into that house and help those people was something that stayed with the person I was talking with for the rest of their life. We can feel pretty helpless right now to help those in need. If you are in a high-risk category, you might feel helpless because you can't get out and help those around you. And if you're not in a high-risk category, you are still maybe wondering how to help people who are in need, and you can't make that physical contact, and how is that going to look? Or maybe you have parents a distance away or relatives a distance away, and you can't be there to drop off the groceries for them or help them out in a remote sort of way. Hopeless and helpless. What about people whose paychecks have stopped, but they still have bills to pay and food to buy, and they can't do anything about it? And what about those who don't have many resources to help their kids? We know that amazing teachers are working on this, but it's fraught with challenges. And there are people whose surgeries are being postponed. I know my brother-in-law was waiting for a surgery and just kind of holding on so that he could get the best surgeon to do the surgery for him. But now that surgery's been canceled, and will it come to an emergency situation or not while he waits? We don't know. And there are others, many others out there whose surgery has been canceled. It's pretty stressful. Speaking of stress, I know that some of you need familiar structure in order to feel contented and relatively stress-free. And your stress might be going through the roof right now. Added to this, it's so easy to find ourselves thinking about nothing else except COVID-19, 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 even though there's more to life than COVID-19. Some of you might be having challenges in your families right now. It's one thing to go from being away for hours on end and then coming back and then doing our activities and sort of the flow of regular, normal life. And it's another thing to be cooped up in the same house for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for who knows how long. Is this a prison sentence? Your family might say. Tempers can flare, little irritations can grow larger than necessary, and we can wonder if we're can survive being with one another for 2 or 3 or 4 or maybe more weeks.
No!
And if you live alone, Even if you are an introvert and get your energy from being by yourself, as opposed to extroverts who get their energy from being around other people, you may get tired of your own company after a bit. You may be longing to visit your friends, your family. Heck, you don't have to be alone to be longing to visit your friends and family.
Mom, Dad, Jeff, mother-in-law, when am I going to see you again?
We all know that there is fear with this virus. Have you felt it? I thought I was doing really well, but twice the week before last, I was wakened by nightmares, which are extremely rare for me. The nightmares showed me that I was afraid of the virus spreading to my family, to my friends, maybe afraid of the uncertainty in my future, and I was really deeply affected. It was really surprising for me because I thought I was doing quite well. I think we're all probably affected by this pandemic, and maybe quite deeply, and maybe even more deeply than we realize. Sometimes when our emotions are so deeply affected, we can become physically ill or mentally ill. And it can be very important for our health for us to deal with our stress before we get to the mentally or physically ill stage. If you are not doing well, I urge you to give me a call or a trusted friend or a counselor. Counselors are doing phone visits right now, and that might be very important for your health. There's a verse from Proverbs that I find really comforting right now. Here it is. Let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. We heard this earlier. Okay, I have a visual here. I'm going to put on strings of love and loving kindness, faithfulness and truth. Around my neck, I'm going to bind it there. And I'm never going to take them off. That's the sense of this proverb. And I'm going to write love and faithfulness on my heart in permanent ink that will stay forever and ever. I'm prepared for the day, the week, the year, my life. I'm never going to take this off. Okay, it could get a bit awkward. Anyway, you might be wondering why I wrote loving kindness and love. The Hebrew word for love here is chesed. And my favorite translation for the word chesed is loving kindness. The word love can be a bit vague. I mean, what do we mean by the word love? But the word loving kindness for me evokes the image of a God who loves me with a gentle, tender kindness, a gentle love that just encompasses me and longs to nurture me and hold me up when I stumble. And my faith, when I think about it, is all about being in communion with, being close to my God who loves me so very much. There is comfort in this thought and challenge. The challenge lies in the Hebrew word emet, which is translated as faithfulness or truth. See, I'm keeping faithfulness and truth with me forever and ever, but what exactly does this mean? Both of these words, faithfulness and truth, have to do with integrity of character. Everything I do and say and think is to be rooted in God's love. There is to be no hypocrisy or dishonesty or concealment. We are to be in communion with God's loving kindness that fills us with God's love, and then we can pass this love on to others. It's kind of like a stream of love that starts outside ourselves, goes inside us and through us to others. Sounds pretty cool, eh? But it can be pretty challenging too. I have the power to slow down parts of that flow or even stop the flow of God's love completely when I'm filled with fear, for instance. There are other things that can stop it, but fear is one thing we're all dealing with right now, and this pandemic is scary. So here's a piece of black paper, and this represents my fear. So God is here trying to flow with love through me, but I'm stopping this love with my fear. And then I say, hey God, I need your help. I really just can't do it on my own, and I can't even get rid of this fear on my own. And it's this great big black blob in front of me and within me, and it feels like my life is falling apart, or sometimes it feels like a cloud of darkness and lightning that's just threatening to strike, and it's an awful feeling, God, and I can't deal with it. Help. And God says, okay, you asked for help, and I'm ready to help you. And God takes God's love and looks at that fear and flows into me and casts out that fear, gets rid of that fear completely, because love is more powerful than fear. And God has the power to cast out fear, and God will do that when you ask God for help. And you know what? Being filled with loving kindness is a lot better than being filled with fear. With God, there is peace, and God gives us whatever gifts we need to deal with whatever it is we need to deal with in the moment. This, by the way, is how we grow in love or loving kindness. A step at a time, a day at a time, a moment at a time, working on one barrier at a time, and working steadily, even in the face of setbacks. We all get them, right? If we work steadily on focusing on God and trying to let God into our lives, God will work steadily with us, and we will find that we are growing in God's love, pandemic or no pandemic. We are never going to be perfect in allowing all of God's love to flow through us, but we can certainly get a lot better. Here is an example. The other day, I woke up with utter dread. This is not usual for me. I usually wake up quite happy. But no amount of coffee or chocolate could alleviate this dread I felt in my core. I was dreading trying to balance the whole day with what I knew I had to do with work and with the kids, and I was thinking it was just a little overwhelming. I just didn't know how I was going to do it, and then there was the fear of COVID-19, and I was just blah. Then I prayed to God, and I said, in essence, help God, please take away this dread so that I can live a day that's focused on you, that I can live this day to the fullest. And God lifted my heart and my mind so that I was able to greet the kids with a smile that day. And then I phoned Marilyn to talk to her about something, and she ministered to me. We got talking about how she looked at every day with such positivity, and you know, that is what I needed to hear, and it did make all the difference. Now, I know that a lot of you know Marilyn's story, but it's worth hearing again if you don't. And if you don't know it, it's worth hearing for the first time, because I think Marilyn has a lot of wisdom that can help us get through this pandemic. So Marilyn, I'm passing it over to you. Thanks, Marilyn. I know I needed to hear your story once again so I could be helped to get the most out of each day. I'm sure there are others who have been just helped. By the way, I'm going to give you all a chance, if you want, during announcement time to share what you've been doing that will help that might help others to get through this a day at a time, or how you've been feeling and how you've worked on your mood and lifting it. There might be little bits of help out there that some of you will be able to share and others will be able to listen to and take to heart. But first, I'm going to end my sermon Right now, I find I'm relying on God for strength, day by day and even moment by moment. I really couldn't be doing what I'm doing now without God's help. I often feel so fragile and yet at the same time so supported by God. It's really a beautiful time, even though it's very difficult. Because I keep turning to God, God has been able to give me a wide range of things, from an increase of patience when I need it, to strength, even to remembering things I need to get done, and more. Yes, I have been snappy at times, and I've had a decrease in patience, but God has helped me to turn around and ask for forgiveness even more quickly than usual. My family and I are going to make it through this pandemic by the grace of God, and with the help of others who, from phone calls and Zoom chats, and from things that people are doing to help those around us. As each of us wears God's love and faithfulness and truth around ourselves and in our varying beings, we can build up our church community even though we're not gathering physically together. In mind and in spirit and in heart, we can be together serving one another and this world around us. I would just like to end this message with a poem by Donna Ashworth, and I have her permission to use this today. History will remember when the world stopped, and the flights stayed on the ground, and the cars parked in the street, and the trains didn't run. History will remember when the schools closed and the children stayed indoors and the medical staff walked towards the fire and they did not run. History will remember when the people sang on their balconies in isolation, yet so very much together in courage and in song. History will remember when the people fought for their old and their weak and protected the vulnerable by doing nothing at all. History will remember when the virus left and the houses opened and the people came out and hugged and kissed and started again, kinder than before. Let us pray. God, help us to keep turning to you for what we need to not only get through this pandemic, not just to survive, but to thrive. Help us to appreciate what we do have and give us the ability to enjoy our days, get the help we need, and pass on your love to others. Thanks, God. Amen.